At my son's birthday party, my granddaughter suddenly grabbed my arm like we were escaping a hostage situation. "Grandpa, let's get out of here. Now." Now I was mid-sausage roll, so naturally, I was stunned. "Why?" I asked, mouth still half full. "Just go, please." She looked like she'd seen the ghost of family therapy future. And thank God I listened. Because apparently my own son was planning something so vile that it made his failed business ventures look like amateur comedy sketches. But we'll get there. Before we continue, you know the drill. Subscribe, drop a comment about where you're listening from, and let's get into the tragic sitcom that is my family. So picture this. I'm at home later that week, quietly enjoying the noble art of ignoring my family, when Trevor, that's my son, bursts through my front door without knocking. Naturally. Why use manners when you can use drama? His confidence was rehearsed, the sort of swagger you practice in the rearview mirror until you convince yourself you're Gordon Gekko reborn. I removed my reading glasses slowly, folded my newspaper, and straightened in my armchair with all the gravitas of a man who's had 40 years of contractors promising miracles and delivering rubble. "Evening to you too, son," I said, which is dad speak for "what fresh nonsense have you brought me today?" What's so urgent it couldn't wait for a proper greeting? He launched into some hand-waving monologue about a real estate syndicate with guaranteed returns. Yes, guaranteed returns. Because if history's taught us anything, it's that Trevor guarantees about as much success as a chocolate teapot. I walked, slowly, deliberately, like a man about to pull out the world's pettiest trump card, to my filing cabinet. Trevor's eyes flicked nervously. He knew what was coming. The dreaded folder collection. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, I keep receipts. Actual receipts. Because one day, I knew I'd need proof that my son was a walking financial demolition derby. Guaranteed, you say? I spread the papers across the coffee table like a Vegas card dealer of disappointment. 15% returns, maybe 20, he stammered. Just like the Miami condos that were different. I asked, pulling out the receipt for the $75,000 that evaporated faster than his common sense. His jaw tightened. His posture collapsed. Honestly, it was like watching a balloon deflate. "You never trust me," he whined, his voice bouncing off my hardwood floors with all the dignity of a toddler denied biscuits. So, I pulled out another file. Cryptocurrency mining equipment. 50 grand. Never arrived. Remember that. That was different. Of course it was. Everything's always different. Apparently, Trevor thinks different means identical but more expensive. Shuffle, shuffle. Another file. The food truck business. 30 grand. 93 days of gourmet dreams before your partner, a convicted felon, might I remind you, vanished with the funds. Trevor flushed scarlet. Snatched his jacket. His movements were sharp, angry. The universal body language of a man caught being an idiot yet again. "This syndicate has real properties, real investors, real returns," he shouted. "Show me the documentation." "I don't have it with me." "Well then, you don't have my money with you either." Silence. Sweet, glorious silence. The kind of silence you only get when someone realizes their performance has bombed spectacularly. "Fine," he snapped. "When this deal makes millions without you, don't come crawling back asking for your cut." Yes, because crawling back to him has always been my retirement plan. He stormed out, slamming the door so hard my windows rattled like they were applauding the performance. Through the glass, I watched him fumble his keys, confidence draining out of him like a dodgy plumbing job. The engine roared to life with all the subtlety of a midlife crisis, gravel sprayed, tires squealed, and off he went, a red taillight disappearing into the distance, like a cautionary tale driving itself. The house fell silent, empty. Echoes of raised voices and slammed doors lingered like the smell of burnt toast. I made coffee. Because when you've got a son like Trevor, caffeine is less a choice and more a survival strategy. As I sipped, I reopened the cabinet. The files stared back at me like a shrine to bad decisions. Miami condos, crypto fantasies, food truck felonies, casino bailouts. Every single one a masterclass in how not to build a future. And yet, tonight had been different. His desperation was sharper. His lies shakier. Meredith, his wife, she fuels this nonsense. Before her, Trevor's schemes were small, silly. Post-marriage, they've gone full Broadway production. And she's forever front row, with champagne in hand. I glanced at the family photo on my desk. Happier times. Smiles before the scams. And all I could think was, how many more files will I have to open before my son realizes he's the punchline to his own joke? That's where we leave it for now. Because trust me, this was only the beginning of Trevor's catastrophic attempt at a deal of a lifetime. I sometimes think back to Trevor at 18, standing there in his ill-fitting gown, accepting his high school diploma with that look of genuine pride in his eyes. Yes, back when success actually required work, not just a LinkedIn profile and an Instagram quote about hustle culture. When did that change? When did he decide the universe owed him boardroom glory without the minor inconvenience of knowing which way round a hammer goes? See, my father built our construction business with sweat, grit, and 16-hour days that smelled permanently of concrete dust and regret. I learned the trade from the bottom up, carrying tools, mixing mortar, pretending to care when architects said open concept. Meanwhile, Trevor seems to think he was born for yachts, champagne, and TED Talks, despite the fact he can't even assemble flat-pack furniture without a meltdown. Back in my study, the lamp cast this saintly glow over 6 years of pure financial wreckage. Nearly $200,000 gone, schemes, scams, and sheer stupidity. Enough to fund a small university education, or in Trevor's case, 3 separate lessons in how to become broke with confidence. Each time, I thought this is it, surely this is his wake-up call. But no. Each time, he somehow convinced me that the next scheme was different. And yes, enabling him wasn't helping. Turns out rescuing an adult child repeatedly just delays the inevitable moment when reality finally clubs him over the head. Who knew? I stacked the papers neatly, each file returning to its proper place, like a little mausoleum for common sense. The cabinet closed with a satisfying metallic thud, the sound of boundaries. Or, at least, my best attempt at them. The next morning, sunlight streamed cheerfully into the kitchen like it had no idea my son was an idiot. Coffee brewed, my grocery list was tucked neatly into my wallet, and for once I dared to think, maybe today will be normal. Maybe I'll just buy milk and bread like a civilian. Adorable optimism. I grabbed my shopping bags, stepped outside, and instantly froze halfway down the brick walkway. My Honda, my faithful, boring, utterly dependable Honda, was slumped on its rims like a teenager after their first cider. All 4 tires, flatter than Trevor's excuses. I knew straight away this wasn't age or weather. No, these were deliberate, neat little punctures. Each one precise, like the Michelin Man moonlighting as a hitman. I knelt beside the front tire, ran my finger along the rubber, and what do I find? A roofing nail. My roofing nail. The exact type I keep in my workshop for emergencies. Of course. Nothing says family bonding, like sabotage using Dad's own hardware. Walking around the car, it was the same story at every wheel. For nails, for flats, for acts of vandalism, and one rapidly aging pensioner about to lose his temper in the middle of his driveway. The timeline clicked instantly. Last night's argument, Trevor storming out the theatrics, the don't come crawling back. And now this. Oh yes, it reeked of my son's handiwork. Petty revenge disguised as vandalism. I rang him, naturally. Took him 3 rings to answer, voice thick with sleep. Of course. The saboteur always needs a lie-in. Dad, what's wrong? It's barely 9 o'clock. I told him about the tires. All 4. Deliberately punctured. Oh, that's terrible, he said, laying the concern on thicker than Meredith's makeup. Probably neighborhood kids. You know how they get during spring break? Yes. Because the local 12-year-olds are absolutely famous for carrying out precision tire assassinations with roofing nails. Very convincing, son. All 4 tires, Trevor. Professional job. Nails at perfect angles. Pause. Then the wounded gasp. Are you accusing me of something? The tone was Oscar-worthy, honestly. If lying were a career, Trevor would finally have found his calling. Still, I backed off. What proof did I have beyond perfect timing, matching nails, and his lifelong PhD in bad ideas? I muttered something about handling it through insurance. He told me to call the police, which, frankly, was bold, considering the suspect was still on the line. We wrapped up the call with him offering apologies about yesterday, like a man trying to slip a sorry, over the sound of 4 brand new tires hissing away my retirement fund. The tow truck came. Mechanic confirmed what I already knew. This wasn't bad luck, this was sabotage. Cost $800. I went home, made a turkey sandwich, and tried to distract myself with the sports section while actively ignoring the giant neon suspicion flashing in my chest. The phone rang again. Trevor. Of course. His voice sounded far too chipper for a man who'd apparently slept through an entire vandalism spree. Forced cheer, sunshine after a storm, all that nonsense. Oh, right, the vandalism thing, he said, brushing it off like I'd stubbed my toe. Not hemorrhaged, $800. Listen, I've got good news. Tomorrow's my birthday. Meredith's planned something special. Just a small family dinner at 6. It'd mean a lot if you came, Dad. Oh yes. Of course. Because nothing says please forgive me for possibly destroying your car, like inviting me to dinner I'll inevitably pay for. Trevor's turning 40. And trust me, it feels like I've aged 80 just being his father. After yesterday's shouting match and this morning's little mystery nails in the tires incident, I fully expected radio silence from Trevor. You know, the dignified silence of a man who's just bankrupted his father for the 15th time. Instead, I got a cheerful party invitation. Because nothing says sorry for possibly sabotaging your car, like cake and balloons. That's thoughtful of you to invite me, I said, poking the situation like it might explode. Come on, Dad. We don't always see eye to eye on financial stuff, but we're family. Yes, family. That magical word Trevor wheels out whenever he needs free money or someone to co-sign the latest scam. Then he mentioned Molly, my granddaughter. Sweet girl, genuinely untainted by her parents' financial clownery. If she wanted me there, how could I refuse? Besides, she's the only one in this circus who greets me without a business proposal hidden behind her back. What should I bring? I asked. Just yourself. Meredith's handling everything. Translation. Meredith had already mortgaged Trevor's soul for the catering bill. But hey, not my problem this time. So I said yes. 6 o'clock sharp. Trevor even slipped in an apology about yesterday's stress. It almost sounded sincere, which was worrying. Maybe, just maybe, I'd misjudged him over the tires. Or maybe I was just desperate to believe it wasn't my own son who'd introduced my Honda to death by roofing nail. Water under the bridge, I told myself. Hopeful music swelled in the background. Fast forward to the next evening. Taxi pulls away. I step onto Trevor's brick walkway, clutching a carefully wrapped gift. A quality tool set. Practical. Thoughtful. Something he might actually use if he ever attempted real work. But the second I approached the house, I smelled barbecue, heard laughter, saw far too many shadows moving about. This wasn't a family dinner. This was an event. A production. The kind of thing Meredith probably hashtags on Instagram with hashtag blessed while the bailiffs sharpen their pencils. Trevor greeted me at the door, grinning like he hadn't spent the week auditioning for most likely to end up in court. Dad, you made it. Come in, come in. Inside, I nearly tripped over my own disbelief. Where I remembered modest furnishings, now it looked like Versailles had been redecorated by a wine influencer. Chandeliers, crystal glasses, expensive-looking furniture. The food spread was so excessive I half expected Gordon Ramsay to march out shouting at sous chefs. Happy birthday, son, I said, handing him the gift. 40 years. Hard to believe. Thanks, Dad. This means everything. And for just a second, blink and you'd miss it. His smile faltered. Something flickered in his eyes, that look of oops. Dad noticed the decor we definitely can't afford. Meredith, he called. And out she came, dripping in a dress that probably cost more than my entire wardrobe, greeting me like I was some donor she'd just reeled in at a charity gala. Glenn, so wonderful you could make it. Let me introduce you to everyone. Everyone in this case being a gaggle of young professionals, all with identical haircuts, expensive shoes, and wine glasses glued to their hands. They talked careers and investments while swirling their Merlot like they were auditioning for the Wolf of Wall Street, Surrey edition. Then Molly arrived, bless her. She threw her arms round me, beaming, and for a brief moment I forgot I was standing in the middle of an unpaid Amex bill. Grandpa, I'm so glad you came. Wouldn't miss your father's birthday, sweetheart. How's college? We exchanged actual human words, a rare treat in this household, before Trevor magically appeared again with a very expensive imported beer. Remember this one, Dad? From that steakhouse in Portland. I did. Mostly because the steakhouse bill nearly caused me heart failure. Still, the fact he remembered the detail almost made me sentimental. Almost. The evening rolled on surprisingly warm. Trevor's friends actually included me in conversation, asking about the construction business like they weren't secretly wondering if I had any spare cash to burn. Meredith kept refilling my glass with frightening efficiency every time it emptied. There she was, smiling like the hostess of the year, pouring wine that probably cost more than my car insurance. This is quite a spread, I said at dinner, eyeing the catered dishes that looked like they'd been airlifted from a Michelin star kitchen. Must have cost a fortune. Trevor waved it off. Meredith's been saving for months. She wanted this birthday to be special. Of course she did. Because nothing says romantic savings like hiring professional caterers while your husband begs his dad for cash. But the maths didn't add up. Not unless they discovered a new currency backed by sheer delusion. The catering, the alcohol, the furniture, thousands upon thousands. Where had this come from? Because Trevor's sales job definitely didn't pay in Chateau Margaux and crystal chandeliers. Another wine, Glenn? Meredith appeared, this time with a bottle of Cabernet that probably costs more than my weekly grocery budget. Pairs beautifully with the beef. Yes, because nothing pairs with financial ruin quite like red wine and roasted cow. I nodded along, letting the wine do what wine always does. Convince me that maybe life isn't a never-ending farce. For the first time in 2 days, I almost forgot about tires with knives in them and sons with bank balances emptier than their promises. Almost. Molly was chatting about her psychology classes, useful subject, considering the family circus she comes from. Honestly, half her coursework could be written just by observing Trevor and Meredith for a weekend. Then Trevor, bless him, the birthday boy, leapt up like he was auditioning for amateur theater. Glass raised, voice all pomp. To family, to second chances, to the future. How inspiring. Nothing says future quite like desperately clinging to your father's wallet while pouring wine that costs more than your car insurance. Everyone drank, obviously. And the wine. I'll admit, it was bloody good. Smooth, rich, probably older than half the guest list, and unlike them, worth the investment. For a fleeting, delusional moment, I let myself relax. Maybe Trevor wasn't plotting. Maybe Meredith was just a bit dead in the eyes. Maybe, oh, who am I kidding? My son kept checking his watch like a dodgy bloke waiting for an alibi. And Meredith's smiles had all the warmth of a tax audit. Together, they kept sharing looks. The kind of looks couples give each other when they're plotting murder, or worse, business opportunities. By the third hour, I was welded into Trevor's shiny new leather armchair. It screamed, financed at 29.9% APR. I was just about to nod off when Trevor appeared at my elbow, grinning like a man who's about to sell you a timeshare in hell. Dad, how about I show you the renovations upstairs? The master suite will blow you away. Oh, of course. Because when I think party, I think, please, take me away from the food and shove me into your ensuite bathroom. Now, I asked, glancing at his guests, who, by the way, were having a perfectly good time without a guided tour of Trevor's questionable tile choices. Before I could politely say absolutely not, Meredith materialized, voice syrupy enough to rot teeth on contact. Oh yes, Glenn, you simply must see the new bathroom fixtures. We spared no expense. There it was again. That phrase, no expense spared, which translates directly into, we can't afford this, but don't worry, we'll just invoice Dad later. I was halfway up when Molly appeared, gripping my arm like a drowning woman clinging to driftwood. Her face? Pale. Her eyes? Wide. Her tone? Straight out of a horror film. Grandpa, you need to leave. Right now. Excuse me? Did I miss here? Or had my granddaughter just tried to smuggle me out of a birthday party like contraband cheese at airport security? Trevor swooped in, his smile still glued on like cheap wallpaper. Molly, what are you talking about? Grandpa was just about to see the upstairs. No, he wasn't. Molly's grip tightened, nails digging into my sleeve. Grandpa, please. You have to go home. And suddenly, I sobered up faster than you can say hang on. This smells like fraud. In 18 years, Molly's been annoyed. She's been sarcastic. That part's hereditary. But scared? Never. Not once. So I stood, muttering something about getting old and tired. Trevor looked like someone had canceled his Wi-Fi mid-Netflix binge. Meredith's voice sharpened despite the smile still plastered on. You can't leave before cake. Cake? At my age, cake can wait. Survival cannot. I'll call you tomorrow, I said, shoving my jacket on. Trevor blocked the door like an amateur bouncer, bleating about special bottles. And just one more drink. I sidestepped him with the grace of a man who's dodged 40 years of tax collectors. By the time I hit the pavement, the cool night air smacked me in the face like common sense. I rang for a taxi and turned back. Through the window, Molly was watching me, her hand pressed to the glass like we were in some tragic soap opera. Taxi pulled up, I slid inside, trembling just enough to make the driver look at me in the rearview like I'd just escaped a hostage situation. Which, technically, I had. I called Molly. She answered instantly, her voice all urgency. Grandpa, are you safe? Safe? Well, I wasn't bleeding out in the bathtub, so relatively, yes. She hesitated. I overheard Mum and Dad yesterday. They had some plan. They wanted you drunk tonight to sign documents. Business stuff. Transferring your company to Dad. And there it was. The punchline to the world's least funny joke. My own son plotting to rob me blind. Not with a gun. Not with a knife. But with Cabernet Sauvignon and forged signatures. Molly, are you sure? Grandpa, they had lawyers waiting upstairs. Lawyers. Mum kept checking the time. Dad kept pushing drinks. It was all planned. 40 years of backbreaking work. Sleepless nights. Sweat, stress, sacrifice. And my son's big master plan? To ply me with overpriced wine and nick it all while I was admiring his plumbing. I almost laughed. Because what else can you do when your life becomes this bloody ridiculous? The penny finally dropped. And by penny, I mean the entire contents of the Bank of England came crashing through my skull. The ridiculous party, the never-ending top-ups, Trevor twitching like he was hiding a body, Meredith's Stepford wife smiles. It wasn't hospitality. It was entrapment. And I'd march straight in like an idiot who thinks free wine doesn't come with strings attached. How much did you overhear? I asked Molly, my grip on the phone tight enough to strangle it. Enough. They planned it after your argument Tuesday. Mum said you were being selfish, keeping all that money from Dad's investments. Selfish. That word again. Apparently 40 years of building a business from scratch translates to selfish, while blowing the profits on overpriced wallpaper and imported gin counts as visionary financial planning. She said once you'd had enough drinks, you'd sign anything, Molly added. Something about how older people get confused when they drink. Ah yes. Nothing like reducing your father to a wobbly toddler with a biro to make you feel clever about your life choices. Imagine raising a child who thinks manipulative fraud is a legitimate business strategy. I told Molly, don't say a word about this. Promise me. She hesitated. Dad asked me earlier why I told you to leave. I said it's because the neighborhood's dangerous at night. Then I went to my room. Bless her. Quick thinking. Clearly skipped a generation. You saved everything tonight, Molly, I said. And I meant it. She's the only one in that house who hasn't completely lost her moral compass. Probably because she's too busy studying how psychopaths think to become one. By the time the taxi pulled into Maple Street, I'd convinced myself my pulse would eventually return to a normal tempo. Mrs. Henderson was perched on her porch, Same wicker chair she sat in since about the Crimean War, wrapped in her shawl like the unofficial queen of neighborhood surveillance. Evening, Glenn. Out late, aren't you? Yes, Dorothy, I said, fumbling with my keys. Just visiting Trevor. I see you got your car fixed. New tires look good. I froze. Mid-turn. Keys dangling. How did she? Well, she continued, I was out here Tuesday evening, as I always am. Saw something troubling. Wasn't sure I should mention it. Cue the icy horror soundtrack. What did you see, Dorothy? I saw Trevor leaving your house. He walked around your car, had something in his hand, checked each tire, knelt down, did something, then looked around like he thought someone was watching. And there it was. Not random vandalism. Not bored teenagers. Not divine punishment for raising an idiot. No, my very own son performing a 4-tire assassination like it was just another Tuesday. Are you certain it was Trevor? I asked because apparently I like to torture myself with the obvious. Glenn, she said, rocking gently. I've known that boy since he was little. It was definitely him. This was right after I heard raised voices from your house. Not that I was listening, but sound carries. Translation. I heard every word, Glenn, but I'm being polite about it. She carried on. He didn't see me. I keep the porch light off, easier to see the stars. The stars. Yes, nothing like admiring Orion's belt while your neighbor's son is stabbing Goodyears in the dark. I appreciate you telling me, I said, swallowing rage hard enough to burn my throat. I wasn't sure if I should interfere, she said. But when I saw you with new tires, I thought you should know. First, the wine and lawyer scam. Now confirmed tire sabotage. My son wasn't just incompetent. He was waging an actual campaign. Destruction by paperwork. Destruction by Stanley knife. Lovely. This stays between us, I told Dorothy. Of course. But Glenn, that boy needs to learn some respect. You've worked too hard to have it ruined by spite. 40 years of blood, sweat, and invoices, and now reduced to Dad's convenient retirement fund. Thank you, Dorothy, I said, because what else do you say when your neighbor just confirmed your son has gone full Shakespearean villain? She nodded, went back to her rocking chair, resuming her eternal post as street watchdog. Meanwhile, I stepped into my house, turned on every bloody light like I was warding off demons. Which, frankly, I was. This wasn't desperation. This wasn't a cry for help. This was war. And I was done pretending otherwise. Dawn broke gray and miserable, like the weather had got the memo that my son had officially declared war. Sleep? Don't be ridiculous. I managed about 3 hours of tossing, turning, and mentally filing Trevor's greatest hits of betrayal. Not so much a lullaby, more a highlight reel of parental disappointment. By 7 a.m., I was at the kitchen table, armed with coffee strong enough to resuscitate a corpse and a legal pad that was about to become the battlefield map of this little family apocalypse. See, here's the thing about betrayal. It stops being devastating once you've had enough caffeine. It starts being useful. Cold, surgical clarity. Trevor thought he could play business hardball with me? Bless. I taught the lad everything he knows. Unfortunately for him, not everything I know. I went to the study, yanked open the filing cabinet, and there it was. A mausoleum of Trevor's financial crimes against common sense. Each manila folder, a work of tragicomedy. The Miami condo scheme, £75,000 down the drain because the developer vanished into thin air, probably somewhere sunny, sipping mojitos. The cryptocurrency fiasco, £50,000 blown on mining equipment that, shockingly, existed only in stock photos. Then the piece de resistance, a £30,000 food truck partnership with a convicted embezzler. Honestly, if there's a global award for poor judgment, Trevor's acceptance speech is long overdue. And these weren't just his blunders. Oh no. Other people trusted him because of my name. Marcus Thompson lost £25,000. David Rodriguez bled £35,000. Jennifer Walsh handed over £20,000. All because Trevor flashed my surname like it was a platinum membership card. The poor sods probably still think I vouched for him. They'll be thrilled to learn the truth. So, phase 1, weaponize failure. Carefully, anonymously, with surgical precision. None of that emotional shouting Trevor favors. Friday afternoon delivery. So they've got all weekend to simmer, swap horror stories, and come into Monday frothing. Strategic. Elegant. The sort of thing Sun Tzu would write a smug little poem about. Phase 2? Meredith. The human credit card bill disguised as a daughter-in-law. Her wardrobe alone screams, someone else is footing the bill, and I'm willing to bet it isn't Trevor's tragic sales commissions. If she's half as clever as she thinks, she'll have her own skeletons stuffed into Hermes handbags. I'll find them. Phase 3. Legal and financial consequences. No shouting, no mudslinging, just cold, hard facts turning into paperwork that ruins lives. A slow cooker of revenge, if you will. By midday Friday, my study looked like a crime drama set. Files everywhere, envelopes stacked like missiles. Every document a warhead of financial incompetence. Marcus's envelope had the Miami mess, contracts, transfers, and that delightful email where Trevor admitted the developer was circling bankruptcy, but carried on collecting checks anyway. David's file included the crypto catastrophe, complete with Trevor's, the supplier looks dodgy, but YOLO message. Jennifer's? The food truck disaster, with Trevor literally ignoring the background check clause to buddy up with a conman. Chef's kiss. Each envelope included a polite little cover letter. Information for your consideration. No melodrama. No emotional blackmail. Just dates, numbers, and Trevor's career-long impersonation of a bin fire. Courier service on standby. Delivery lined up. Friday afternoon launch. It was all so neat, so satisfying. I almost forgot this was my own son I was dismantling like IKEA furniture. Almost. Then the phone rang. Trevor's name on the screen. Oh, darling boy, you'll forgive me if I don't pick up. Daddy's busy orchestrating your social and financial destruction. Call back never. Anonymous delivery confirmed. No problem, mate, just bring cash. Because apparently, in the world of professional couriers, anonymity is just another service option. 40 years in business had already taught me this. If you want something done quietly, hire people who cheerfully deliver a horse's head in a box and still give you a receipt. The packages left my house at 2:30 p.m., and somewhere out there 3 of Lewin's most well-connected business folk were about to sit down to a surprise evening retitled Trevor Myers, Financial Disaster, a greatest hits compilation. Marcus Thompson, who ran the Chamber of Commerce like a petty monarchy. David Rodriguez, chairman of the local investment group and part-time dispenser of smug advice. And Jennifer Walsh, patron saint of transparency, honesty, and passive-aggressive Christmas cards. Perfect audience. Meanwhile, Trevor rang me for the 3rd time. Because nothing says, I'm innocent, like desperate persistence. This time, I actually answered. Dad. Thank God I've been trying to reach you. Yes, Trevor, I was busy. Plotting your downfall. But let's keep it vague. He asked why I'd listened to Molly and left the party early. Oh, you mean the party where you and Meredith planned to get me drunk enough to sign away my business? Oh yes, hilarious misunderstanding, son. I kept my tone flat. I was just tired. Then came the piece de resistance. He wanted me over again. Meredith, apparently, was disappointed that I'd left. Bless her fragile feelings. No mention of lawyers, contracts, or attempted daylight robbery. Just, she worked so hard on the party. Yes, Trevor, she really did. Hours of scheming, backstabbing, and choosing wine to make sure I couldn't spell my own name by the end of the night. Truly, an artist at work. Maybe lunch next week, he added. I've got some new investment ideas. Of course you do. Because nothing says, sorry, I tried to legally mug you, like pitching Dad another pyramid scheme over sandwiches. By the time I hung up, it was 3:15. The packages had been traveling for 45 minutes, taking their way toward 3 very influential people who, by tea time, would know Trevor's CV read like a cautionary leaflet handed out at Gamblers Anonymous. The phone rang again, unknown number. I didn't answer. Probably Marcus already reaching for his pitchfork. But anonymity was key. Let the evidence speak. Let Trevor's reputation eat itself alive, like a snake choking on its own tail. Come Monday, the results were in. By 8 a.m., my phone had already rung 6 times. carefully worded questions from business associates. You know the type. The ones that start with "I'm just curious," but really mean your son is finished. Marcus had phoned David. David had phoned Jennifer. And by breakfast, the three of them were practically holding a support group for people who lost money to Trevor. Beautiful. Phase 1, complete. Time for Phase 2. Meredith. Ah yes. If Trevor was the gambler with all the charm of wet cardboard, Meredith was the Bond villain who actually remembered to monologue. The puppet master behind the birthday party trap. She deserved her own tailored catastrophe. Folder out. Meredith Myers, professional standing. Which, incidentally, was about to collapse like a cheap deck chair at a family barbecue. She worked at Pinnacle Financial Consulting, a job that required the two qualities she lacked most, integrity and subtlety. Senior relationship manager for high net worth clients, no less. Essentially, her role boiled down to please don't be dodgy. Spoiler, she was dodgy. A few discreet inquiries later, and what do you know? Meredith was spotted midweek at the Marriott Lounge with some mystery executive from Portland. Hours of expensive wine during work time. And let me tell you, the only spreadsheets getting handled there were not financial. Wedding ring on him, luxury shopping bags on her. Not suspicious at all. Meanwhile, despite Trevor's were struggling sob stories, she was swanning around in jewelry that could probably fund a small country's GDP. Either Trevor was lying or Meredith had alternative income streams. Delightful either way. So I drafted the complaint. Polite, professional, and utterly lethal. Dear HR, please note that your trusted employee not only enjoys wine-drenched afternoons with married executives, but also thinks it's perfectly ethical to scam her father-in-law with fraudulent documents. Add in receipts from the party expenses, proof she'd been playing Monopoly with client trust, and voila, Meredith's career on a silver platter. Package prepared. Courier summoned. Monday afternoon, it was on its way to Pinnacle Financial. By Tuesday morning, HR would be combing through Meredith's client files with the sort of glee usually reserved for Christmas bonuses. And me? I sat back, sipped my coffee, and admired the slow, steady crumbling of Trevor and Meredith's shiny little facade. One package at a time. My phone rang just as I sealed the envelope. Unknown number. Obviously Trevor, because nothing screams desperate middle-aged man in freefall, like cycling through burner phones like you're auditioning for Breaking Bad. The Poundland edition. I let it ring. Took note of the time. Desperation is like cheap wine. It always shows itself eventually, usually loudly, and with a bit too much stomping. And right on cue. Tuesday afternoon delivered the grand performance. Car doors slamming with the kind of force that only comes from financial ruin, followed by footsteps on my walkway that practically screamed, "We're screwed, let us in before we implode." Knock knock. No bang bang. Aggressive knocking. You'd think they were here to collect a debt, not confess to one. Trevor and Meredith stood on my porch, faces flushed, him like a cornered fox, her like someone who just realized Botox doesn't protect against public scandal. "We need to talk," Trevor snapped, barging in like I was the unwelcome guest in my own bloody house. Meredith followed, all icy rage and professional panic. "We know what you've been doing, Glenn." "Yes, darling, Detective of the Year. Congratulations. Please collect your trophy. A lifetime ban from polite society." I closed the door with the sort of calm only achieved when you've already written everyone's eulogy in advance. Gestured at the couch. "I've been expecting this." Trevor didn't sit. Of course he didn't. Men like him only perch when their power's intact. He snarled, "You destroyed my business relationships." Marcus, David, Jennifer, all got those bloody letters. Oh, Marcus, David, Jennifer. The holy trinity of networking wankers. Meanwhile, Meredith went full HR drama mode. My employer received an ethics complaint. HR is investigating me. Shocking. A financial planner with ethics complaints. Truly, the sun must have fallen out of the sky. I settled into my leather armchair like a king returning to his throne. Those complaints contained factual information. Factual. Trevor bellowed, veins popping like an over-microwaved sausage. "You sabotaged my reputation." "No, Trevor," I said sweetly. "Your behavior sabotaged your reputation." I just provided the footnotes. Meredith leaned in, furious, but still clinging to her last shred of lawyerly composure. You're destroying my career over a family disagreement. Ah, there it was. The phrase of the guilty. Family disagreement. Otherwise known as premeditated fraud. So I opened my neatly prepared folder. The receipts. Literal receipts. Molly spilling about the lawyers at my party. Mrs. Henderson spotting Trevor puncturing my tires like some sort of pound shop villain. I laid it out calmly, piece by piece, as if reading a particularly juicy obituary column. Trevor's face drained faster than his offshore accounts. Meredith's cracked mask revealed pure fury, the kind usually reserved for cold tea or surprise wrinkles. You decided, I said, that robbing me blind was easier than building your own success. Trevor's reply? The timeless classic. Dad, you don't understand the pressure we're under. Oh yes, the eternal justification. When in doubt, blame pressure. Not your actions, not your greed. Just pressure. Poor you. I cut him off. Meredith orchestrated fraud using her job knowledge. You? You stabbed my tires like a sulky teenager. Neither of you are victims. You're amateurs. That one stung. He slumped onto the couch, broken. Meredith stayed stiff, calculating if she could salvage the wreckage of her career. Spoiler, she could not. Investors will never trust you again, I continued, twisting the knife. Your business reputation is dead. Meredith, the ethics board will have you for breakfast. These are natural consequences of attempted theft. What about Molly? Meredith tried, desperate now. Oh, Molly's fine, I said casually. She chose loyalty over betrayal. Funny how that works. Her future's secure. Unlike yours. I stood. That was the signal. Showtime over. You declared war on me. I replied with the truth. Justice isn't revenge. It's accountability. They left without a word. No more fight left in them. Walked to the car like wet laundry flapping in the wind. Drove away, lives in tatters. Honestly, it was better than television. As their headlights disappeared, my phone buzzed again. Molly, Grandpa, are you okay? Mom and Dad were whispering about investigations. Oh, sweetheart, I said, everything's fine. Justice has been served. Your future's safe. I love you, Grandpa. I love you too, darling. And don't worry, 40 years of hard work isn't going anywhere. It's in honest hands now. And with that, dear listeners, another family tragedy brought to you by greed, betrayal, and the endless comedy of thinking I wouldn't notice. If you like this story, do the usual, like, subscribe, and leave a comment about which family member you'd exile first. To hear the next mess, click the box on the left. Go on, treat yourself.